Fantastic as that. We welcome to the program now Representatives Fred Shanks and Price Wallace. Representative Shanks serves Rankin County. He is also this year the chair of the House Rules Committee. Representative Price Wallace serves Rankin and Simpson counties, serves as a chair of the House Constitution Committee. Morning there, gentlemen. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. Glad
Good
to be
morning.
here.
Great to be here.
Well, so you guys have been busy already there, Representative Wallace, with filing this concurrent resolution to reinstate the ballot initiative process here in the state of Mississippi. We've been without one for a couple of years now, so we're trying to get that thing reignited past the House and headed to the Senate.
It did.
Over in the Senate.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, you know, that was one of the main things that I believe most everybody on the campaign trail, one of the questions that was asked of the members was, when are we going to get our ballot initiative back?
Yeah.
And I do know that, you know, the speaker made comments several times. You know, that would be one of the first things out the gate. So when he handed out all the chairmanships, and I was put on Constitution, and he told me we need to get something moving. So I got busy, and my colleague, Representative Shanks, and I went back and pulled up the original bill from 2022 and went over it and made some tweaks here and there and changed some things. And I know that the gentleman from Hines said we brought out a Ford Pinto, but let me say this.
He did. Yes, he sure
did say it.
And could have went with a different car.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. But let me say this. You know, when you find a diamond, it's dirty. Now, when you start polishing it, it becomes shiny. So, you know, with some polish, we're going to get a gem out of this.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that too.
I like it, man. So, I read his comments as well, but I never really saw anything specific. I mean, are there some specific objections and concerns? Is it the restriction to not allow a measure on the ballot that would deal with the abortion issue? Is that what's on his mind?
I believe that was the main issue.
Okay.
And, you know, as far as that particular item goes, the reason that we wanted in there, main reason I wanted in there was, you know, that unborn child does not have a voice. This ballot initiative gives that unborn child that voice. So, you know, if we're going to talk about both sides of the issue, you know, women's rights, which I support that 100%, I have nothing against that. What about that unborn child? So that's the reason that was in there, to speak up for that unborn child.
Well, I'll also have to say that I've heard anecdotally that there's some those in the Senate who in the past have opposed this process, these resolutions to reinstate the ballot initiative measure. For that reason, they've used that as kind of a justification for opposing it, that it would allow, say, maybe some big out-of-state group to come in here and get a measure on the ballot. We've seen this happen in numerous other states that would expand abortion rights and kind of undo what Mississippi's already done after the Dobbs decision. And so this also sort of eliminates that objection as well.
You bring up a good point.
Yeah.
While we were working on the bill, we find out that in the Northeast, I can't remember what state it was, it may have been Maine, but they spent, or a group came in and spent $54 million on exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. And, you know, the House position, the majority of the House, I mean, we've been fighting this battle for 10, 12 years now. You know, we overturned Roe versus Wade. You know, all that came out of the genesis of it came out of the House. So we were like, no, we're not budging on that. And to be quite honest with you, Price and myself, I mean, we had several colleagues come up to us, and had that not been in the the resolution, I mean, we might not have had the votes to pass it.
Well, I think that's right, and again, I would say that this eliminates that objection coming out of the Senate, and the reason I think they've kind of hung their hat on that, and they've pointed to that as a reason for not supporting it. I don't think that's the real reason. I think the real reason is they just in general don't support it. The concept.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, even some of our colleagues, you know, they view it as, look, we're a republic, and we are elected by our people to represent them.
Sure.
So it's certainly different philosophies.
Yeah, and I don't want to paint a broad stroke over the entire Senate. I know there's some in the Senate that do support this, but I think in general that's where it died last time in the past. So and the other thing we did, Representative Price, is you guys included a different formula for determining the number of signatures required.
We did. The original bill, I think, was 12% of the registered voters that voted in the last gubernatorial election.
Right.
All right. So the last gubernatorial election, what about 821,000 people voted?
Right.
And about 12% of that is 98,500 votes, I think. Mm-hmm. So what we did is we took it and changed it to 8% of the registered voters in the last gubernatorial election. It didn't mean
as of the last.
As of the last, yeah. Right. Doesn't mean you had to necessarily vote. You just was a registered voter.
Yeah. So
at 8%, and you have to include active, and there's inactive. There's about 152,600 inactive. So total registered voters as of right now, 2,083,460. So 8% of that signatures would be 166,676.
Yeah.
And then I know the congressional districts was a question, and the way this bill is worded is whatever congressional districts at the present time.
Yeah.
And the reason we done that was I'm hoping with these new industries that's locating here in Mississippi, our population is going to rise. So we might get the 5th congressional district back. But anyhow, this formula fluctuates with the up and down of the registered voters.
That's right. It protects against any changes in congressional districts once the amendment is inserted in the Constitution. And that's a departure from what exists now, where it explicitly says 5 congressional districts, which is what blew the whole thing up.
That's right.
The Supreme Court to essentially negate it and invalidate what we had in the Constitution. Although our Constitution says you're supposed to have a ballot initiative process.
Yep.
So
right.
This work is to restore that. Yeah, I mean, so that's where we are, and we've had some changes in Senate leadership as well with respect to the committees that would be taking this up, coming over from the House.
Yeah,
have you heard any feedback on that?
I don't even know if the Senate has even done any committee work yet.
Okay.
I talked to my colleague on the other end of the chamber, Senator Berry, yesterday evening, and as far as I know, the Senate hadn't even started any committee work.
Okay.
So I can't say just yet. I'm hoping next week they're going to start taking up these bills that we've sent down and get this moving.
I think that the number of signatures, as you know, was the big sticking point in the past. At least that was what was represented by numerous senators. And as I recall, what they sought was 12% of registered voters. This resolution calls for 8%. The one that you guys worked on in the House and sent over there a couple of years ago kept it the same at 12% of those who voted in the most recent gubernatorial election. So you have essentially changed that to increase the number of signatures required. I think that maybe still comes in a little less than what the Senate really wanted, but it seems like a reasonable compromise.
Well, Fred and I felt like if we could get, close to what they want it, maybe not all the way, but give them a little bit more meat on the bone.
Start talking.
Yeah, well, it'd be better.
Yeah.
So, and there's one other thing that we done was the old bill had 5 initiatives could be on the ballot at one time.
Okay.
We lowered that to 3.
Yeah, 5's too many.
It gets confusing to the voters.
Yeah.
If you get that many initiatives on the ballot and they're trying to figure out, do I vote for this one, don't vote for this, and it's just confusing. So we felt like 3 would be a better threshold for, what could be allowed on the ballot.
Yeah, especially when you consider what our laws require as far as what has to be included on the ballot to describe and kind of support the measure being proposed here.
Right, that's right.
Especially if there's any funding required. You've got to include like the source of funding and so forth.
That's right.
So you start looking at 5 of those, your head hurts. You don't know what the heck to vote. And you know what happens is a lot of people just don't vote.
That's true.
Yeah.
we've seen
just
that
take
before.
a walk. That's right.
You guys hang around. We'll talk about some other stuff.
Absolutely.
We got Representatives Fred Shanks and Bryce Wallace in the Element Well studio. We're coming right back. Everyone, it's middays. We're chatting with Representatives Fred Shanks and Bryce Wallace. We've been talking about the concurrent resolution that would reestablish the Ballot Initiative in the state of Mississippi. That was authored by Representative Bryce Wallace and also co-authored by Representative Shanks, Representative Calvert, Boyd, McGuire. So this thing is over in the Senate now. You guys passed it. You had a little pushback, probably a little more than pushback, certainly from the other side of the aisle, but it's in the Senate hands now. We had a question that I chatted with you guys offline about. This from Ben from Madison. Could you ask them if the local language would prevent a ballot initiative that would legalize wine in grocery stores, mobile sports betting, or further reform of marijuana laws? I've yet to get an answer to that. I don't think so. I mean, what it says is to propose any new law or amend or repeal any existing law relating to the to propose any new law or special law or amend or repeal any existing local or special law. So I guess what that comes down to, Ben, is whether or not if a ballot measure went to the ballot to allow the sale of wine in grocery stores on a statewide basis, I don't see how necessarily that would conflict with municipal or county.
Yeah, I agree with you. It wouldn't make sense to do it on a local level. But if it was a statewide, and and Ben, also, if you're listening, just hang with us on that sports betting. Might have something for you coming up.
I'm hearing that as well. So, and I don't know that that's necessarily a conflict with any local laws there. I don't think it would be, or impose any measures on municipalities. I mean, that would be a statewide matter.
Right.
So
another thing that we took care of was this is not a constitutional amendment. It's a statute.
That's right.
So that way, if something is not working right, we can go in there and make a change in the statute.
Yeah.
That was the problem with the other ballot. It went into the Constitution, and so you'd have a hard time trying to go in there and change something on the Constitution.
And that was something that a lot of folks didn't really care for with respect to Initiative 65, which would have established a medical marijuana program in the state, is that that entire text of that law essentially would have been inserted into the Constitution.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I talked to a bunch of those groups, and when it was all said and done, and we ended up doing the program anyway. They were even like, probably wasn't a good idea to have a drug in the Constitution, because once it's in there, that's right. But once it's in there, it's not coming out.
Well, and we got to go back to the people to put something on the ballot for the people to vote on to amend it or change it.
That's right.
Which is just a completely different situation and process than changing statute, amending statute. So the good point that Representative Wallace makes is that this would change that entire process and approach, so that those citizen-initiated ballot measures would essentially make or amend state or repeal, possibly state statute, and not amend the Constitution.
That's right. And we actually saw that when we did do a medical marijuana program. I mean, we immediately had to come out the next year and tweak it, and it not just on our side, but with the industry side too, because it was a new program. Some things just needed a little work. So that's a smart thing to add in there. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll see where this goes at this point. I think this is something that seems to be just wildly popular. I mean, I suspect both of you gentlemen hear this from your constituents. Hey, when we going to get this thing back? And not that they necessarily have anything in mind that they want to go out and support, get on the ballot. They just feel like it's something that's taken away from them, and generally people don't like that.
Oh yeah, I have one constituent. I mean, right when we started session, he sent me an email with his top 4 items that he wanted. And number 2 was ballot initiative. So.
Well, I appreciate you guys working on it, and we kind of had a false start. I know last time, Representative Shanks, you were chair of this committee, the Constitution Committee, that now Representative Wallace chairs. And you and I talked about it on the show and quite a bit at that time, and just couldn't get anything done over in the Senate.
Well, feeling a lot more optimistic this year.
What else are you guys working on?
I'm just digging in. Like you mentioned, I'm the new rules chairman, so
Yeah.
I'm just really kind of taking in there. Got quite a bit of Rankin County stuff that we're working on, some big
Okay.
projects, things
Good.
like that. And I'm still thinking about doing my umpire bill.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm working on that. And outside of that, I mean, like you've already said, the past 2 weeks, we've had these humongous billion-dollar economic development plans, and I mean, so that's just taking up a lot of time. But we still got a lot of big things coming. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have a big session.
So I was pleased to see that on both of these big economic development projects that both the House and the Senate passed these packages in really short order. I mean, very swift and overwhelming support. Had a couple of opponents in each chamber, but in general, these things went through.
It's real hard to argue with. That's your that's your background.
Yeah.
And when MDA came over and Mr. Cork, gave us a presentation on both of them. I mean, there's just no downside to it. I mean, is it perfect? Maybe not perfect, but I mean, states are just doing anything they can to get either one of these companies in. So we got lucky too. There's a lot of hard work done behind the scenes, I know, and it took a long time, but well played.
No doubt. Representative Wallace, you heard any feedback from your constituents concerning these two big projects? Or has there been any talk about that in your district?
I have not, other than they're excited that business is coming to Mississippi.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to some more. I'm sure there's some more down the pipeline that we hadn't heard about that's being worked on.
Phone's already ringing.
Simpson County is open for business. I'll put it there.
The entire state is, and we got so many great locations across the state to set up shop and make a significant capital investment. We got great workforce. We've done a lot of work in that area as well, and I applaud the legislature, the governor, everybody involved in really stepping up the efforts to upskill our workforce and get us prepared to take on these new generation of jobs.
Yeah, Representative Bell was on this morning with Gallo talking about workforce development and how that has played into a lot of these industries wanting to come here.
Yeah,
because the workforce is being developed, and I think he said he met with Nissan yesterday, and they had nothing but positive things to say about what's coming out of our high schools, junior colleges that's workforce ready. I mean, they can hit the ground running. So it's just exciting times right here in Mississippi right now.
Yeah, I mean, it solves a big problem for these guys. So something I've said on the program before, you guys have probably heard me, is that the communiversity.
Yes, absolutely.
We need that across the state.
I mean,
we need that exact thing replicated across the state.
I mean, I think about it quite often, but I wish this was around in 1996 when I was getting out of high school.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
There's some great opportunities.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But to your point earlier, we've heard that when these two big projects landed, it went to the top of all these corporations. They're like, hey, what is going on in Mississippi?
Yeah.
And why don't our people know about it? They found out. So, it's just created a lot more interest in that, in that world.
Yeah, no doubt. Taking notice, and I agree with you, Representative Wallace, that we're going to see some outgrowth as a result of this. We're going to see some, I think, businesses look to locate here in the state of Mississippi that really we weren't even on their radar. And both of these projects, I think, have placed us squarely in their crosshairs. It's a good place to make an investment and set up shop. So, and I've heard nothing but positive feedback from the companies as well.
Good.
Their
That's
experience in working with MDA. And I'll just point out that this really gets started. It gets anchored at the local level, and the local teams are critical to getting this. And then, of course, they engage with MDA and the governor's office and then ultimately the legislature, and working as a team, we end up with a really good outcome here.
Got to have that groundwork.
Yeah, it's going to be unbelievable. Let's see, anything else you guys are working on? I know I've beat the PERS issue up to death. I know you guys know we got to do something there. I think everybody is on board and anxious to hear sort of what the suggestions, what the plans are. But at least we're starting to talk about it.
That's right.
I'm looking at possibly a person that's committed a nonviolent crime, but is a felon.
Yeah.
Has served their time. Is possibly out there working, maybe have a family, but they got this conviction on their record.
Yeah.
I'm talking with some members across the aisle about maybe expunging that record after, say, a 5-year grace period of being clean.
Yeah.
And put them folks back as working, voting citizens and a contributor to the state of Mississippi.
Good.
I think it's something we really ought to look at.
Good.
So,
I agree with you. I mean, if they're behaving, like you said, and they're clean and they've been reformed and they're truly motivated to work and contribute to society, we shouldn't have obstacles in the way of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Representative Fred Shanks and Price Wallace, really appreciate you guys coming in.
Appreciate
Anytime.
you and
Thanks a lot.
enjoyed it.
Coming right back, folks, in the Element Wealth studio.